Cool. I think we have like something of a quorum, which is great. Sorry to be like one of your last speakers. I guess everyone here is already in a food coma from the looks of it. But hopefully I can make this entertaining. A quick question, though, is I'm kind of curious in this audience, what proportion of people are like technical versus artistic? So are you coder, technical, any technical people? Couple over there. That's kind of like the nerd corner over there. OK. Art, culture, fashion. OK, all right. Lots more people in that space. And you all work in Web3 or not? So raise your hand if you work in some form in Web3 or crypto. OK. One of the questions I kind of want to ask in this conversation is why? What motivation do you have to be here? And is it just greed or is it something else? For me personally, it's about building the metaverse. And not the kind of lame Mark Zuckerberg glasses metaverse, the one that we all read about. The idea of being able to be inside virtual worlds that have rich experiences in which I can meet someone and fall in love and earn an income and do all those things that were promised. And the reality is that the technology to do that wasn't in place. That's why we started Improbable. And the first problem kind of on that journey was building compelling experiences, which is a really hard technical challenge. How do you handle thousands of people in one space? How do you handle everyone speaking? How do you handle the technology behind that? So I want to show you a little clip of about 100 public events we did over the last year, just to give you an idea of what I mean by that technology.
Those players are actually quite siloed. As you add players into a game world, quickly the amount of data you have to send snowballs. And you have to build specialized systems to handle that amount of workload. If you have a game with 100 players inside of it, and then you want to scale that up to a game with 10,000 players inside of it, that's not 100 times more complex to do. It's actually 10,000 times more complex to do.
We didn't hear that.
This is so cool. All right, y'all, let's go.
So what started as a promising technical demonstration had turned into an actual gameplay experience unlike anything any of us had ever been in before.
Let's go, Voyagers. That was the greatest shit I've ever seen. And let loose the dogs of war. Ah!
So hopefully some of you were at some of those events. We started off 10 years ago in a barn, unable to make 20 people or 100 people interact in a virtual world. And we reached the stage now where we can handle over 20 billion messages a second on the back end. We've developed our own bandwidth compression algorithms. We've developed our own rendering engine. We've developed our own infrastructure for running events that get DDoSed with hundreds of people around the world in them. And we've commodified this. If you go outside to the booth for M Squared, you'll see my co-founder, Rob. If you have a project, it's a SaaS business now to just build one of these things quickly and easily. But this was just one part of that journey toward the metaverse that I want to be in, and I think you want to be in too. The other part was supposed to be crypto. It was meant to be that we would be able to have digital assets that are all on chain and can interoperate. You remember all of this stuff like 10 years ago and everyone got excited? What the fuck happened, if you excuse my French? Why don't we have this? Why do I see app chain after app chain and meme coin after shitcoin? Like, why? The technology isn't, it's hard, but it's not absurdly hard to get to millions of transactions a second, to get to blockchains that just work, that are just hidden away from us. And I think the reason is greed. Greed and short-sightedness. I think a lot of people in this space got excited by the money. Look, we've all been there, and there's a lot of opportunity to make money quickly. And I think as a result, we're really letting down not just the dream of building a metaverse, but also the really important role decentralization has to play in building a society, building a culture, and building structures that are not all entirely controlled by Elon Musk. or insert other person. And I think this is now maybe a moment in time where this industry needs to ridiculously, needs to dramatically shift in terms of the problems that it values and the ways that it wants to work. And I don't want to just stand here like lecturing people. We've had our own fair share of challenges and opportunities over the last few years. But I think for me, the most important thing we can all work on now is a single Giga chain. An opportunity to have a billion gas per second chain or chains that can handle huge amounts of traffic and computation and that are actually built not to exploit value very quickly, but actually to build sustainable applications. And the challenge we face is that for that to happen, companies, big companies like us, have to enter this space and build infrastructure, but without the idea that we're going to make money primarily from that infrastructure, but from applications. So over the last 2 years, we've been working with a bunch of our friends at Andreessen Horowitz and other places, and we've built, you're going to hear another L1 announcement today, we've built an L1 called Somnia that, that is EVM compatible and can handle 1 million transactions a second. It's also built so that it can run validator nodes that are consumer hardware, and it's also been built with basically all of Improbable and a couple $100 million behind it. And the goal here is not to build the next great L1, not to extract money from like yet another token that goes to the moon and goes to shit, but to have a 10-year journey toward building and attracting the best teams and companies. So we've also created a venture builder around this, and kind of a little bit of my request today is if you have even a half good idea and you want to reach out, we're now expanding and looking to support and build new teams that want to try to create new bits of culture, new bits of technology. And this isn't like far away. I'm actually going to tell you that our testnet is next week, which is, I don't think we've actually announced that yet. And it's also about 2 orders of magnitude faster than Mega ETH and Monad, but don't tell them that if they're here. We don't want them to know yet. And we're going to rush to mainnet in just a couple months. And we're going to do everything we can to distribute the token to builders and creators as much as we humanly can. So for us, that's about building a culture, a community, and a governance around the chain that is not about blockchain and not about Web3, but completely focused on building new scalable businesses. I think this talk is about post-human economies, and one thing I'd want to really emphasize is the urgency of this problem. Like, you may have seen the massive regulatory changes in the US and the massive rise of generative AI. And where that takes us is a world where our economy is increasingly going to be powered by labor automation devices that are owned by a handful of people. Literally, the only way that doesn't go bad is if we have some form of decentralized ownership over these machines. That is the only way this doesn't go to a place where a few people have all the control and all the power. And if you want to see that happen, the only way that's going to happen is if the infrastructure upon which we decentralize can handle that level of capacity. I spend a lot of time with some of the largest big tech companies and their leadership, and one of the things I find curious is how disinterested they are in blockchain. And not only because they don't think it solves a real problem, but because they know that the second it does, they can just enter the space, take their distribution, and completely crap on every single project being represented upstairs, and even my own. And I think there's a limited window of time now, a period of time, before, as a necessity, companies building AI and AI agents start to think much more seriously about crypto. And it's a period of time where we as an industry can get our act together and can solve these problems together and focus on that long-term value. Because once again, if we don't do that, we all end up in this other world, which I don't want to live in. I don't know about you guys. So to close my talk, if you have an idea, a vision, a business, a company that you think you would like to build, I would love to build it with you. And if you're thinking of launching another crappy app chain, I will pay you not to do that. Please don't do that. Come to me. I will give you money so that you don't do that. And look, we're called Somnia Network on Twitter. We're also trying to find some people that are not like paid shills, but actually authentically interested in what we're doing. So reach out, and we'd love to bring you into our community as well. Thank you.